It is very clear to me and the rest of the gaming community that Left 4 Dead has absolutely left its mark permanently in the gaming space. There have been so many clones of this game, so many attempts to capture the original magic of the original Left 4 Dead and even the sequel Left 4 Dead 2. And while some of them have had relative success in certain elements to it, I can honestly say after playing the Anacrusis last night with my friend Matt, this game does not capture that magic. Not to say it doesn't have its own certain charm, not to say that there aren't some really interesting elements to this particular game, but this is an absolute clone of Left 4 Dead, and I don't think that it handles the whole idea of horde-based combat remotely as well as Left 4 Dead. And I would even argue that Back 4 Blood, I feel, is a much more complete package, and I know that game has come under some scrutiny as well, at least from the true Left 4 Dead purists. So what is the Anacrusis? Well, it's a 4-player, cooperative, first-person shooter. You're going to play in this retro future spaceship where you have to work your way through to get various objectives. And it's basically a corridor shooter. I mean, there are some elements where the game branches out ever so slightly, where instead of walking down the main hallway, you walk down a side hallway to the left or to the right. But for the most part, the game is going to basically guide you in a single direction as you work your way through, killing waves and waves and waves of incredibly poorly programmed aliens. And that's really the gist of the game. Now, they have taken their own unique spin on things. For example, throughout the levels, you will find these containers that you can open. Or no, actually, they're containers. They're more like a terminal, which will give you a set. You can select from three. You can not three random perks, and you can pick them. The perks could be things like your gun has more ammunition, or the special weapon that you pick up does more damage, just to name a few. And you can pick these and you collect them as you go through the level, and you kind of get, that's how they kind of put this spin on it, that it's this infinite replayable game, because no two selections will be the same, no two choices, play through whatever, right? You get the infinite replayability there. That's what they're really touting on. The perks themselves are decent. As I said, like the one that gives you more ammo. I mean, sure, right? Everyone wants more ammo. I had one that was really good last night that I shot, and if I shot an alien in the head, they actually did a little bit of AoE explosive damage, which was really nice to kind of chip away at the large hordes of enemies. And there's a few other ones that are decent, but for the most part, I felt like they didn't really impact gameplay in a way that I wanted them to. It didn't change the way I played. My style of playing was pretty much the same, regardless of what set of perks I had, regardless of what we were doing on the level. It's basically stand next to your friend, find the nearest corridor of aliens, and shoot as much as you can. If you have grenades, spam them, and hold key defensive positions. That's pretty much the gist of this game. There wasn't a whole lot of distinction, and I feel that's where it kind of falls apart. I'll get to the AI and the poor execution in a moment, but the gameplay loop itself, there's only a handful of guns to select from. They didn't really feel that different to me. The pulse rifle didn't feel significantly more powerful than the SMG. Well, I think they call it the SMB, whatever. But the little rapid machine gun. The blaster shotgun did seem to do a little more damage up close, but since most enemies die in a single headshot anyway, it didn't really feel like that weapon was as devastating as I wanted it to be. I think the real distinction in this game came from the grenades, particularly with the stasis grenade, where you could throw down a grenade that would create this energy bubble that slowed down anything that went inside. And that was a good synergy to pair with like an incendiary grenade, or throwing a vortex grenade down to kind of lump all the enemies up, particularly with that perk I had mentioned before, where you shoot an enemy in the head and they explode. That would do a lot of chain damage. That was nice. But outside of that, most of the gameplay felt very samey. And even the special items you get that are limited, whether it be the turrets or the arc gun, didn't really feel like they made a big impact in the battlefield. You know, when I found these items through exploring side doors and looking, you know, kind of checking every little nook and cranny of the level, I never really felt like, oh wow, this is going to make a huge difference in the next battle. It was just more of the same. And that was frustrating. The AI is the other huge elephant in the room with this game. The AI is very buggy. Animations are very buggy in this game. I'll just leave the animation part by just saying that the way the characters run, the way they interact, the way you watch people in the world interact, the way you watch aliens interact, they look very janky. It was almost like they were programmed with this default set of animations and they're trying to shoehorn them into terrain, upstairs, walls, etc., where they don't really belong. You'll see quite a bit of this weird teleporting where aliens kind of ignore the geometry of the space and just very distinctly walk up to you or walk. Like, perfect example, last night, there was a platform that you had to jump over. So imagine like a second story building and then a gap and then another second story building, right? Instead of typically running and jumping across from one building rooftop to another, the alien just walks straight. So as soon as they hit the lip of the first building, they instantly teleported to the ground level, walked across the ground level, and then instantly teleported back to the second story building where they attacked us. And this happens time and time again, and you'll see it in hallways and stairwells, them climbing off of like spawn points in the ceiling or the roof. The way that they move, they will just instantly teleport to you, and it just does not feel very realistic. On top of that, when they do get to you, their attack patterns are very weird. There are times you will be surrounded by aliens who will not attack you physically at all. They just stand there. And there's also a lot of times where aliens are crouched and huddled in the corner. It's kind of like their default animation. Kind of reminds me of the guys you fight in GTFO where they're just sitting there kind of like crouched and they have their hands like maybe over their ears or something. They will just ignore you oftentimes. You can actually run into them, physically run into them and push them around and they just don't even react. So the programming is very off in this game. You know, could this stuff be patched out? Of course it could, of course. And I understand it's an early access game. However, the real selling point of this game has to be this aesthetic in which you're in this retro future. It looks like something out of like the 60s or the 70s. The way the characters are dressed, the way the universe is presented is gorgeous. It really is a very pretty space to explore and see and to look at what, you know, a future could look like if we still lived in the 1970s. And it's got very interesting color palettes, lots of browns and oranges and baby blues that all really pop, and it does look very beautiful to walk around the world. However, the level design is so similar that after about 10 minutes or so, basically the first of, I believe the first mission we did, I want to say it was 7 sub-chapters as we fought our way to the bridge. But 10 minutes in, you basically completed the first checkpoint where you get to the safe room and you get new health packs and that sort of, you know, ammo and get ready for the next big battle. You've seen it all. You really have. You've seen pretty much everything that this game is offering, and looking at various screenshots and gameplay of other people, it doesn't really change. You have the standard ship hallway that looks nice and clean and polished and very retro future. You have some of these outdoor spaces where you fight in some sort of garden. There's typically a level where you fight where the ship has taken damage, so part of the floor is broken up and there's like sparks, and it looks like you can maybe potentially fall in a pit below you, or big pieces of the ship have been, you know, ripped apart so that you climb up rubble to get to another floor, kind of like a Fallout game or something. That is the biomes. That's the game. So once you kind of get past all that, what are you left with? Well, you're back to the same problems I said, with buggy AI and lackluster weapons and not really distinctly fun gameplay. It's on Game Pass, so it's worth checking out. It's not going to cost you anything if you're a Game Pass subscriber. But I don't think in its current state I would recommend this as a full purchase for people. I think people who are looking for a Back for Blood type of Left for Dead type of game should stick to those two, honestly. There are better horde shooters than this that definitely are much more polished, that are much more refined, that have better special enemies, which was something actually I didn't even mention. I guess I'll wrap up with that. There are special enemies, as you know. The Left 4 Dead series, again, gave us these wonderful, difficult enemies that appear. Anacrusis is no different. You have the exact same type of enemies. You have an enemy that will grab you. You have a grabber. You have a gooper. A gooper basically hits you and turns you into this goop, and you have to shoot the goop away to proceed in the level. You have probably the most distinct one, which was the flasher, which shoots this bright, I mean intensely bright light, which blinds you. You have a spawner who spawns other enemies around him randomly, but that is kind of irrelevant because the AI just does that anyway. And then you have like this kind of tank monster who takes a significant amount of damage, hits you really hard, and you have to fight back. But none of them ever really felt distinctly challenging, with the exception of the flasher, only because you couldn't see physically. It was so bright when you were fighting that enemy. But the rest of the enemy types and the rest of the regular enemies that you face felt incredibly generic and boring and uninspiring. So it's unfortunate, because when the Anacrusis was first announced years ago, it really looked like it was going to be a hot, fresh take on this genre of gameplay. And I was really excited because I thought, okay, cool. You know, we're going to give us more co-op, PvE, you know, horde shooters. We like those. Those are fun. Give us crazy weapons. Give us fun things to do. And let's have fun objectives and gameplay loops and put us in an environment we've never seen. And they did that, but they just failed at every piece along the way. So thumbs down for me on the Anacrusis. Maybe after it leaves early access in a year or whatever, it will be more refined. But as it stands right now, the time of this recording, we're at just today, the 21st. You'll probably see this like next week, so maybe the 24th, 25th. It's just not there. It's really not. That wraps up my review of the Anacrusis. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.